Hey, what's up, guys? Scott here. Back with Wednesday's edition of the DC Marvel Daily, my new video series I just started this week. So this is my third episode. And so just so you know the way the video series is going to work, I'm going to do videos Monday through Friday, and I'm going to use the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, to come up with topics for that next week's set of videos. So with that said, I've done a video over Sarah Lance, or White Canary, kind of her journey. I've done a video over everything we know and everything we can expect from the upcoming Batman movie, which is right now just called The Batman. And today we're tackling a topic very close to my heart, the next Arrowverse crossover event. So Arrowverse just wrapped up Crisis on Infinite Earths. Anti-Monitor has been defeated once and for all. Oliver Queen made the ultimate sacrifice. So he's gone now. So the heroes that are left, they kind of have to pick up his legacy and be Earth's protectors. At the end of Crisis, this new team of 7 was established, even though they didn't call it the Justice League. That's what it is, and it's freaking awesome. So what threat is this team going to have to face next? And before we get into this, I think the next crossover should focus on this new team having to really work together to face a threat. So I actually have 2 articles we're going to read through and kind of discuss. The last one, one of the articles is devoted to a whole idea that I've had. So I found this article. I was like, I got to do this in my video. So for right now, the first article is called 10 DC Comics storylines that could become the next Arrowverse crossover event. So let's go start the list here. And the first one we have Armageddon 2001. And then now I'm starting to read it. So taking a step back from traveling the multiverse and traveling through time instead, Armageddon 2001 might be a great next storyline for the heroes to follow. The story follows a time traveler from a dystopian future who goes back in time to discover the identity of the mysterious villain and dictator Monarch and stop him from rising to power. Knowing a hero is destined to become this ruler, the time traveler goes in search of the hero who will fall from grace, gaining power as he does so and becoming the hero Wave Rider. It would be interesting to see an Arrowverse hero faced with a villainous future. Maybe. I don't know. Time travel can be so tricky, as we've seen in the Arrowverse and MCU. I don't know. To do a time travel, and they have touched on time travel before in Invasion. To do a time travel story, it would be kind of they'd have to do it right. But it is a possibility. So next we have Eclipso, the Darkness Within. Let's see. With cosmic level heroes like Superman being added to the Arrowverse alongside Supergirl, travel to outer space is something that could become a major factor in future crossovers. For one, exploring the moon could lead to the events that created Eclipso, the Darkness Within event, where a Daxamite scientist accidentally unleashed a creature who feeds on hate, known as Eclipso. The entity known as Eclipso feeds off hatred and is able to possess those who have shards of black crystals from the diamond, known as the Heart of Darkness, even possessing well-known heroes in the process, which would make an interesting foe-to-foe. That could work. That way you could maybe have a mixture of hero versus hero and hero versus villain. So having them fight Eclipso, maybe. Or even in the previous crossover, if they just wanted to fight this villain, Monarch, that would be cool too. Let's see. And then at number 8, we have Panic in the Sky, which I can already tell you that is Brainiac. That's just Brainiac. Having the heroes facing Brainiac in the next crossover, he would be an awesome crossover villain. So I'm just gonna skip that one because that's just telling that the heroes might face Brainiac next. But you have Superman and Supergirl now, so that is definitely a possibility. Brainiac could happen, and that'd be a good choice. And number 7, we have Bloodlines. It says, if the Arrowverse ever decides to take their crossovers less into a cosmic scale battle and more into a horror-driven sci-fi epic, then DC Comics story Bloodlines would be perfect for the next crossover event. The story involves a race of parasitic aliens who fed on the spinal fluid of their victims. Ugh. Not only are they reminiscent of the xenomorphs from the film franchise Alien, but the villains appeared in the pages of Lobo first and were unusual in their feeding, would potentially unlock the metagene in some humans, creating new heroes and villains in the process. That sounds interesting. If they did a more horror-based crossover, that would be cool. Which kind of goes into this next one. Number 6, Underworld Unleashed. So, Delving further into the more magical side of the DC universe, the Arrowverse would be the perfect place to unleash the terrifying crossover event Underworld Unleashed. The story follows the release of the demon Neron on Earth, who enhances the abilities of villains to create chaos on Earth. This sounds like it has potential, but I can almost guarantee you this one's probably not going to happen because, and only because, Neron has already been done in the Arrowverse on Legends, and they killed him. So that's not to say he can come back, or they could just use some other demon, but more likely Neron would not be in that crossover event if they do it. But that is a cool premise. A demon comes to Earth and grants villains, more powerful powers. That could definitely be horror related too. That has potential. Let's see. Number 5, Genesis. Okay. One interesting crossover that could work well into the new post-crisis world the Arrowverse now has is Genesis. The story follows the heroes and cosmic beings of the universe studying the mysterious God Wave, a cosmic wave of energy responsible for the creation of gods, demigods, and metahumans. However, in the story, the God Wave is approaching the starting point of the power source, and the new gods are desperate to stop Darkseid from harnessing its power while the wave begins reversing some metahumans' abilities. The heroes travel to the source wall to stop Darkseid and his army from gaining this power. So Darkseid, essentially. This crossover would introduce Darkseid to the Arrowverse, which would be so freaking cool. But to me, Darkseid, he is not a one-shot crossover villain. He needs to be like the Anti-Monitor and Thanos, the villain they build to for at least a couple of years. At least a year, I'd say. I'd say a year would work. Darkseid does not need to be a one-and-done villain. They need to build up to him. But Darkseid needs to show up eventually, yes. So this crossover, Darkseid being introduced potentially in next year's crossover is definitely a possibility. Number 4. Let's see. Next we have Our Worlds at War. Okay, if the heroes of the Arrowverse need a new cosmic threat to face after defeating the all-powerful Anti-Monitor, then perhaps the next major crossover event would be Our Worlds at War. The story follows the threat of the universal being known as Imperiex, who seeks to destroy the universe as it has been corrupted. Superman is instrumental in this storyline, as are the Martian Manhunter and several other heroes. This also involves the involvement of Warworld and another Brainiac 13, and pushing of all the villains into the past at the moment of the Big Bang, destroying the threat entirely. Sounds interesting. But this Imperiex guy, he could be the next big bad. He could be like a one-shot crossover villains for our heroes to face. Imperiex would be a good choice. So far we really have Darkseid. I'm talking about individual villains, not necessarily events. We have Darkseid, Brainiac, Imperiex, Monarch. So yeah, there's some good choices in here, guys. I'm excited to see. They have tons of lore to pull from, for sure. Next, we have Dark Knight's Metal. One of the newer DC Rebirth storylines that would be interesting to see the Arrowverse adapt would be the Dark Knight's Metal. In this storyline, Batman accidentally unleashes several evil versions of himself from the Dark Multiverse and must fight to return to his world as the multiverse faces collapse. So the Dark Multiverse, which has been suggested before in the Arrowverse. So you'd maybe have the heroes fighting evil versions of themselves, which has kind of already been done with Crisis on Earth X, but they could do it again if they pulled it off well, for sure. So that one basically evil doppelgangers. So let's see next. Next we have Infinite Crisis. Make sure I'm not missing one. Uh-oh. Okay, so I read the article before it kind of went all wonky on me. Infinite Crisis is basically the aftermath of Crisis, where a lot of the inhabitants of Earth Prime do not remember the universe pre-Crisis. No one except the Paragons and the people that John or Martian Manhunter has enlightened their mind, uses powers to refresh their memories. So there are a lot of people on Earth Prime that do not remember the universe or the Earth before Crisis. The Crisis happened. So essentially what this is saying is that someone found out, and then like Superboy in the comic storyline, Superboy finds out and goes mad. So it would deal with the aftermath of a powerful person gaining their memories and going mad. That's what that storyline would cover, which could be interesting. And then, let's see. And then last we had Forever Evil. So Forever Evil is when it would introduce a whole slew of new villains to the Arrowverse, because it basically involves the crime syndicate. The crime syndicate coming from another Earth to try and take over our Earth. So that would potentially introduce a whole slew new villains. And it has been said in the Arrowverse, after post-Crisis, a lot of the villains that the heroes faced in the previous universe have new looks and stuff. Oh, here we go. Okay. The article finally buffered again. Okay. One storyline that could introduce a whole new slate of villains to the Arrowverse post-Crisis would be Forever Evil. A new 52 storyline that saw the evil team known as the Crime Syndicate from Earth 3 arrive and take over the world, destroying the Justice League and other heroes in the process. It forces the villains of Earth to choose a side, with some like Lex Luthor becoming somewhat heroic for fighting the Syndicate. The story would introduce villains like Overman and Superwoman, as well as the nefarious Owlman, into the Arrowverse, making for some new formidable opponents for the heroes to face. So basically, what we got from this list that potentially could be new villains are Darkseid, Brainiac, the Crime Syndicate, Monarch, Imperiex. All those sound like really cool villains. Potentially, again, evil doppelgangers, even though it's kind of already been done. But it could definitely still work if they did it right. So, but now we saved, in my opinion, the best for last, because I have a whole article dedicated to this, and I'm going to read this whole article, guys, because it reflects my thoughts exactly. Let's see, get it pulled back up here. Well, the article is having trouble loading. My computer is being wonky. So I'll just tell you. The article is talking about Starro, and how in the recent episode of The Flash, there was a tease of Starro. And this person in this article said, of course, it could have been just a throwaway Easter egg line, but what if it wasn't? What if they threw it in there intentionally to start planting seeds for next season's crossover? The person in the article said that Starro would be the perfect villain for the next villain for the heroes to face. So, because not only and for those who don't know, in the Silver Age of comics, Starro was really the first villain that brought the Justice League together to fight. And so the person that wrote the article was saying, not only would that honor the Silver Age, have Starro be the next crossover villain, not only would it honor the Silver Age of comics, but it would also go back to what Mark Guggenheim has said about next season's crossover, and that's that it's going to be smaller scale, because the Anti-Monitor, you had like several different Earths and traveling back to the dawn of time. Like, next crossover, we're getting back to basics. We're just going to have the heroes come together and fight a threat, which I'm guessing that's what that means. And they should spend the next crossover to establish this new team. So I think Starro would be perfect. So we have several good choices. Just to refresh, we got Starro, Imperiex, Monarch, Brainiac, the Crime Syndicate, potentially Darkseid. There's still a whole lot of DC bad guys that they could use in these crossovers for the heroes to fight. So I'm excited, guys. And Mark Guggenheim has said they already know what next season's crossover is going to be. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen there. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Can't wait to find out. Peace out.